Do you enjoy drinking Cooper's Irish Stout and thought you wouldn't mind making yourself with a homebrew kit? Then come along with me and I'll show you how easy it really is. Let's go. Hey guys, Musa here from Quantum Home Improvements and Solutions. Welcome back. If this is your first time to our channel, it's great having you join us. And so today I'm going to show you how to make Cooper's Irish Stout using the homebrew kit. Now I've been brewing for around about 16 years and I've got to say it's very easy no matter which brew you make. So now I'm not a big fan of stout. I tried it years ago and I didn't like it, but I wanted to know what was in this particular Irish Stout. So I went on Cooper's website and downloaded their data sheet, and so they described this taste as a rich dark brew displaying coffee, chocolate and licorice aromatics, roasted bitter notes with a dry finish. Now that sounds pretty good, but I prefer sweeter beers. So during our live chat, which we had recently, I told the guys I'm gonna make this brew and what they think that I could do to make this sweeter. And it was suggested that I use light dry malt. But then one of the viewers by the name of Benny from the United Kingdom said that he uses lactose. And so I'm actually gonna go this way. And the reason being, I went into Country Brewer in Nepean and spoke to Paul and asked him the exact same question. And funny enough, he said lactose. But in actual fact, Paul said he would use 400 gram and this packet is 500. And he said, man, just throw the whole lot in. So I'm actually gonna take the advice of Paul and do that. Now I love milk and I'm really looking forward to this taste. So now going by Cooper's recommendation, they recommend that you use their enhancer number 3 as the brewing sugar, which has maltodextrin, dextrose, and malted barley. So now, before we start, the first thing we need to do is put this syrup in hot water to let it soften. But before we do that, we take the lid off and you'll see the yeast. Now we'll put this yeast on the side and we'll use it later. But on the back, it says pill here. So this is the instructions. We'll take that off, just carefully take it off, and we'll put it on the side and use that later as a reference. Okay, so now I'll put it in boiling water. We're now going to sterilize and sanitize the fermenter. So now this is Cooper's 3-part brewing system. So this is the lid, the collar, you get a spoon, you also get a little bottler, a tap, and 2 clips. Okay, so now the first thing I'm going to do is spray the tap with some phosphoric acid. I'll just put that in. There we go, just wiggle around to make sure it clips in. Okay, and now I'll put in the chlorinated trisodium phosphate. Now I've got this from Country Brewer, and you need to put 1 teaspoon per litre. So I'm putting 2 litres in, so I'll put 2 teaspoons. Now this is gonna be really hot. Just let that cool down before you start cleaning it. Now I've got a clean cloth, and what I'm gonna do is just quickly, just give that a wash comprehensively, inside and out. Okay, so now the water's still pretty warm, but it's manageable. Okay, so we also need to wash the collar, and the lid, the spoon. We'll throw the clips in. I'll throw the little bottler in. And finally, I'm gonna wash this pot, which is what we're gonna be using to transfer the water. We will be using tap water. I've been using it for in this property for around about 12 years. So you do need to use good, clean tap water. And I've never had a problem with our particular water supply. Okay, so all I've got to do now is wash everything out in cold water. First, I'll just let some water come out of the tap. I'll take the tap back off, give that a nice rinse. All right, so I've gone through and cleaned the bench. So now we're ready to sanitize. So what I'm going to use for sanitizing is phosphoric acid. This is a food grade. And all I'm going to do is spray this down. Now, it doesn't matter if this oversprays everywhere, because it's pretty harmless. I will spray the bench just in case there's any bacteria just floating around. Now, just in case you don't know, bacteria is everywhere. So you've got to be pretty comprehensive. So now I've got to say, there's a lot of guys out there that's just sanitizing, and they're very good at what they do, and they use possibly Sterilize or Starzan. Now, being a conscientious YouTuber, I prefer to show you the full technique, which is recommended by Country Brewer, so then you don't have a failed brew. So I just go through and spray everything. So now I'll just do the tap, and I'll put the tap on, getting ready for the next stage. Okay, so there is a bit of residual in here. I'm just going to get rid of that. And then, so one thing I've got to say, you never ever use soap when you're washing your equipment. All right, so you're going to need 2 litres of boiling water, and now I'm going to grab the syrup. And you can see there's a dome, there's a lot of pressure in there wanting to come out. So when I open this, there you can hear it. There we go. Wow, that is very dark. I'll just use a tea towel to carry it. All right, so now I'm going to put in roughly just over 1 litre of hot water in. And I'll tip in the syrup. That is really dark, wow. It's a nice aroma too. So now you can see inside here, there's still a lot of syrup in there. So what I'm going to do is put some more hot water in here and get the rest out. Okay, I'll just stir that around. Okay, look at that. Almost all gone. All right, so the next stage is putting in the brewing enhancer number 3. Okay, so now I'm going to pour this in very, very slowly. You'll find that if you go too fast, it will clog up. Okay, I've just grabbed the spoon as well. So now if you don't mix this well initially without over stirring, you won't be able to get a true specific gravity, original specific gravity. So I'm just going to do this nice and slow. So you can see it's starting to clog up a little bit. Just got to go nice and slow. Okay, that's it. Now I'm going to put in the lactose. So now the lactose will dissolve a lot easier. Okay, it's done. All right, I'll just give it a little bit more of a stir. Now you don't need to over stir this. Some people get a little confused. When you're making brew from scratch and you're boiling up your wheats, your barleys or whatever you're using, that takes out the oxygen from the water. And so you need to replace the oxygen by stirring it and using the paddle. But in this case here, because we're using tap water, there's enough oxygen in it. So in actual fact, it's recommended not to over stir it, because if there's any bacteria in the air, they will go into the brew, and that's not going to be good. So the sooner you close this, the better. All right, so now I'm going to fill up the fermenter to 23 litres or thereabouts. And there we go, roughly 23 litres. Okay, so now all the sugar has dissolved. So now the last thing to do is to pitch the yeast. But before I do that, I'm going to get a hydrometer reading to get an original specific gravity, so I know how much alcohol content this is going to have when we're finished. All right, so I'll just move this across. So I'll just slowly pour in the brew. Okay, that should be plenty. Let's see. Okay, so it's bouncing around a little bit. So now Coopers say that without the lactose, this should come to 1038, but in actual fact, it's coming out to 1043. So this is looking good so far. All right, so now you don't tip this back into the brew, either tip it out or try it. I've got to say, I'm surprised. I ended up drinking the whole thing. This tastes really nice. Okay, so now the final stage, putting the yeast in. So first we're going to put the cores and collar on. So I'll just put that in place. Okay, so now all you do is sprinkle the yeast on top. Okay, so you don't stir it in. You just let it sit on top and it will start to ferment. Okay, believe it or not, that's it. So all I'm going to do now is put the lid on, put the clips in, and it's done. So the brew is now ready. You let that sit for around about 6 days. In actual fact, I let it sit for around 8 days, depending on the temperature. Now this is supposed to brew between 21 to 27 degrees Celsius. Coopers do recommend that it sits more on the lower end, around the 21 degree. So if it's too hot, put it in a cooler spot. And if it's too cold, put a heat pad or a blanket around it. It's the 8th day and the Cooper's Irish Stout is now ready to be bottled. So I have taken a hydrometer reading over the last couple of days and it has stabilized. And so the temperature has been sitting on around 21, 22 degrees Celsius, which is perfect. And to help me wash these bottles comprehensively, I'm going to use this bottle washer. And so now I'm going to put in some sanitizer. For every litre you put 30 ml, and which is roughly 3 lidfuls. I'll give that a stir. And all I do is basically put pressure on the bottle, push downwards, and it pumps up and washes through. So using this bottle washer is a game changer. So I did sterilize the bottles earlier using the same process as I did for the fermenter. Okay, now these are the older bottles, but I did buy a new box of bottles. You will need to replace your bottles now and then, but the lids you actually need to replace probably every 5 times. And so with the new bottles, you do not need to sterilize, you just need to sanitize. Okay, that's the last one. I'll just put the box on the side. So now when you do get a new box of bottles, the lids will have a rim around them. So for the first time bottles, you close it and it clicks off. That's fine. Now when you've got bottles that you've used before and you need to replace your lids, you will need to remove that little lip. So you've got to be careful not to distort the lid at all. All right, so now I'm going to put all these ones in. Even though I've already done a couple of hydrometer readings, I'm just going to do one more. And to avoid making a mess, I'm going to put a towel down. Now I'm just going to spray the tap, also the little bottler. Right, so now I'll just put this in. Here we go. Wow, that color is so dark. All right, let's see how we go with this. Okay, it's definitely stabilized at 1014. Now going by Cooper's chart, the original specific gravity was 1043, which came in at roughly at 5.6 potential alcohol level. Now with the final gravity, they came in at 1014, which gives you roughly 1.8%. Now what you do is you minus the 1.8 from the 5.6 and you get 3.8. Now in the secondary fermentation period that happens in the bottle, that'll increase by 0.5%, bringing the grand total up to 4.3 ABV, alcohol by volume. So now I've got to say, brewing with lactose has been a bit of a learning curve for me. So I have discovered that lactose does not ferment using a brewing yeast, unlike bacteria for yogurt. And the great thing about that means that this brew will be sweet, which is what I was looking for, but it does not increase the alcohol content. Okay, I'm going to try this again. That is nice. I'm going to drink it all. Now I'm just going to take the pressure off, take these clips off, and take the lid off just partially. So this stage is really easy. Just place the bottle through the little bottler and turn the tap on. So when the bottle touches the base of the little bottler, it causes the valve to push up and allows the fluid to come through. So I always have another bottle ready to go so I don't have too much wastage on the ground. Okay, so it is recommended once you fill the bottle up to put the carbonated drops in shortly after. So I've got 6 here. I'm going to put the carbonated drops and then come back. So these carbonated drops are the Cooper's brand. Now all you do is place, for a 750 ml or 40 ml bottle, you place in 2 drops. So now this is a new bottle and I'll use a new lid. So now if you've got 375 ml bottles, you only put 1 drop. And so these carbonated drops do exactly what the name suggests. They carbonate the beer during the secondary fermentation period. So one thing to note, you do need to put these lids on pretty tight, because if you don't, the gases will escape and the beer will be worthless. Okay, that's the 6th one. I'll go back to bottling. So we're almost finished. So now the brew's come up to the tap and not much more is going to come out. So what I do is I get a couple of props and I put it underneath. I do this very slowly so I don't shake up the sediment. Just do that like that. Beautiful. All right. So now this will help me to get more out. Okay, so not much more is coming out of the tap now. So I'm going to have to tilt it. Now this will have sediment in it and I'll put these on the side as my tester bottles, but I should be able to get another, probably 2 bottles out of this. Okay, that's it. Now this one's gonna be a little bit cloudy. All right, so now I'll just carbonate these ones. The last one, this is just over half. I'm just gonna put 1 drop in this one. And I'll use this as my tester bottle. Okay, all done. The Cooper's Irish Stout is now complete and ready to drink in around 2 weeks. But one thing to note, Cooper's only use the highest quality ingredients and they are GMO free, which is genetically modified organism free, which means they have a best after date. So the longer you leave it, the better it's gonna taste. Now a good habit to get into is to record the type of beer you made and the date. Now I'd like to thank Cooper's for their ongoing support and also Dee and Paul from Country Brew and Nepean. So if you like, I'll put a link for them in the descriptions below, but I'd also like to thank Benny for giving me the recommendation to put in the lactose. Great idea, it tastes great. So I do enjoy having a drink with my mates, but I've got to say, please drink responsibly. So that's the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it, I hope you got something out of it, and if you have any comments at all, please leave them below and I will get back to you. And I'd ask you, please consider to subscribe, hit the like button and share this video, and there's many more to come. Thanks guys.